What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, and in today's episode, we have to talk about the Nuggets finally winning their first NBA championship. Before we dive into that, though, I just want to remind you guys to make sure you hit that like button for me, and if you're new and you enjoy this type of content on a weekly basis, make sure you subscribe. That game was incredible. Incredible, up and down, kind of a little bit disappointed in some ways. It was incredible because, like I said, it's always cool to see a franchise win their first championship and a player like Jokic, who's two-time MVP, looking like the best player in the NBA after this postseason run, and he finally gets someone that's a new team that enters the championship conversation. You know, over the last couple of decades, the championships have been dominated by, Warriors, Lakers, Cavaliers, Miami Heat. We kind of get the same team, so it's always cool to be able to see, the Bucks get one there. The Raptors got one. Now the Nuggets have entered the conversation, and I'm hoping that over the next, decade or so, we'll start to see a lot of different teams and players start to, win them a chip or two instead of the same faces and same names being in the NBA Finals. But overall, very low scoring game. This gave me at a certain point, like I was telling somebody while I was watching, I got like 2005 vibes. You know what I mean? 94 to 89. In today's game, you're not going to get a lot of games like that in the regular season, let alone the playoffs. Low scoring out of the gate. And I'm going to be straight honest and to the point. This is a game that I feel like Miami lost more than the Nuggets won. When you just look at certain things that I value, especially in the playoffs, it looked like early on or even midway through and going into the fourth, Miami positioned themselves to send this back home. First and foremost, you're a proud team as an opponent of the Nuggets whenever you go into the fourth quarter and they have less than 80 points. They went into the fourth quarter with 70 points on the board. This, again, is a night where you don't have a crazy performance from Jamal Murray. He went 6 of 15, 2 of 7 from 3, no free throw attempts with 14 points, 6 turnovers, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. You're comfortable with that performance if you're the Miami Heat. If I told you guys before this game started that the only person with 20 or more points would be Jokic and he wouldn't have a 30-point triple-double or anything like that, and that Jamal Murray would go 2 of 7 from 3, Caldwell Pope will go 1 of 5, Michael Porter Jr., who has 16, still only shot 1 of 6, and, the Nuggets would leave 10 points at the free throw line, shooting 56% from the free throw line. 56%. They had 14 turnovers, and they shot less than 20% from 3, 17.9%. If we being extremely accurate, they went 5 of 28. If I told you all of that would happen, and I made you place a bet, you probably would have put a lot of money on the Miami Heat. And I felt like there was times throughout this game, especially in that fourth quarter, where I was asking myself, where's Jimmy Butler? And I got to give him credit. He came alive there in the end of that fourth quarter, but I feel like that was a little bit too late. And like I said, all hats off to him, all credit. But I think they needed that a little bit more earlier. It was evident. There was times where they took a lot of questionable shots from some guys late in that fourth quarter. There was a corner 3 on the left wing from Max Strus that I just wasn't a fan of. Kyle Lowry hit some big shots, made some big plays for them. And I love his heart and his fight to say, I don't want to go home. Duncan Robinson had some flashes there. He hit some big shots, but there was times throughout this game, and specifically early in that fourth quarter, where I was just kind of wondering where Jimmy was. It just felt like he was drifting out there, kind of going through the motions, and then boom, late in that fourth quarter, we see him hit 1 3. Then it went to another 3. And then it's like, okay, we know the heat check has to be coming, and it looked like Kyle Lowry was going to make a play for himself. He kind of did the whole dribble around the paint and went into the handoff with Jimmy, and we had that questionable call on the right side, right corner, where they called the foul, and Jimmy was able to get the free throws. And then it felt like, okay, finally, here it is. But I'm a big believer that if they get that energy or that that fight from Jimmy a little bit early in his game, they might have could have had a different circumstance. He only shot 27% from the field. And like I said, a lot of those shots were late. It was a point in the game where I think he, in the fourth quarter, was 2 of 12. And so he made 3 shots, to close the game out, and had, 12 or 8 points in the fourth. So he had about 9 to 11 points in the fourth quarter there. Very, very tough. I love the way Bam came out and played, though. I think Bam, he can go out with his head high in his game. Obviously, there's certain shots and certain ways you want Bam to play. A little bit more aggressive has been the constant, consistent conversation around Bam as far as offensively. I want to go down and have the box score right in front of me just so I can know. Jimmy Butler had 13 in the fourth. 13 points in the fourth quarter, and the team had 18. 3 people scored for the Miami Heat in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler and two guys who didn't start the game. Kyle Lowry had a 3, and Caleb Martin had a incredible finish where he contorted around Jokic to avoid the charge. That was a very nice play. In a championship game, I think that's unacceptable. Bam took 2 field goal attempts in the fourth quarter, missed both, 0 points. Max Strus played 8 minutes in the fourth quarter, took 3 shots, 2 of them were threes, 0 points. Kevin Love didn't even play in the fourth, and Duncan Robinson took a shot, and so did Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller missed a tip-in, and that tip-in was very disappointing to see him miss. And then on the other side, Nikola Jokic, their best player, their leader, he went 5 of 6 in the fourth quarter. And then you get 4 critical points from Bruce Brown. He had a plus-minus of 12 in that fourth quarter. And I think that alone is tough, to have 3 people score in the fourth quarter and, 2 of them be guys that didn't even start the game for you is a little bit disappointing. But again, I felt like it was chances for the Miami Heat, and Bam, like I said, Bam came with it. I think Bam leaves this game with his head high. Not saying that Jimmy should have his head down at all, but I know this is not the finish that Miami Heat fans or Jimmy Butler expected or would have wanted. 21 points on 5 of 18 shooting. 9 of those points came at the free throw line. I guess you take it. It's just that the Miami Heat kind of ran out of gas here. And like I said, all playoffs on the podcast, I picked against the Miami Heat, not because I'm not a fan of them, not because I want to see them lose, but because I was expecting this wall to come in previous series. You got to give your credit to them. The playoff run was magnificent, taking out the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that I thought was favored to win the championship going into the playoffs, was incredible. Then to bounce back and take care of the Heat while Jimmy Butler had a bum ankle, and then to lose 3 in a row against the Boston Celtics and go into their home court in Boston and to win that and then come right into the NBA Finals was a tall task. But the Miami Heat delivered all playoffs, and rightfully so. They hit that wall now where Gabe Vincent, really just couldn't find a shot to go down for him from the perimeter the last few games of this series. Max Strus was up and down. You already are missing a big scoring punch for you, and Tyler Hero, one of your top scorers, is out. And they just couldn't have that person step up that they've had all playoffs. You know what I mean? There's been somebody in every series who was, taking that step for them, whether it was Gabe Vincent against the Knicks, Caleb Martin against the Celtics, Jimmy Butler obviously in that first round. And here they needed some guys that they could lean on. It was good to see Duncan Robinson get himself back into the rotation. It was good to see some flashes from Kyle Lowry, but again, nothing too consistent for anybody outside of Kevin Love. Outside of Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, and even at times for them, their play was up and down, especially Jimmy Butler, based off what we had seen the rest of the way through. For Denver, all year long, this has been them. All playoff long, this has been there. They have answered every single time they've needed to. It's not always the prettiest. They haven't had the sexiest and prettiest wins. They aren't the sexiest, prettiest team, and that's why a lot of people came into the finals saying, hey, this is going to be so boring. But they always answer when they're needed, and that's why I said a long time ago before this series even started, Denver, all playoffs long, have looked like what you see from championship teams. They always have an answer for every single thing, every adjustment their opponent makes, every run their opponent goes on. Every time it seems like momentum is swinging away from them, Aaron Gordon makes a defensive play. KCP may not shoot the ball the best, but it seems like he makes the threes that matter the most. Jamal Murray, even on his ugliest nights, finds a way to make some tough shots. You know you can count on Jokic and that bench at different times, kind of like Miami throughout the course of the playoffs. Denver replicated that throughout the course of the series, where in one of those games, Jeff Green, Christian Brown, and Bruce Brown combined for like 21 points in a quarter. We saw Christian Brown a couple days ago, have a big night for them. And then the last game was Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown came out tonight and had another good game for them with 10, 6, and 4 of those rebounds being offensive. So you got to tip your hats off to Denver. And at one point, they gave DeAndre Jordan some minutes, which was a shock to see. I was happy to see Michael Porter Jr. Find a different way to get involved, because the three-point shot just hasn't been falling at all in this series, but he was still able to deliver 16 points and find different shots in between instead of just sitting at the three-point line. He got in there, had some shots closer to the basket, and he went down there with the Giants and was able to secure 13 rebounds. I've said it all season long since they made the acquisition. Aaron Gordon, to me, is one of the most important role players in the league, one of the most skilled players who hasn't played in the All-Star game. So it's good to see him be able to come over and help this team win a championship and be a difference maker. This is a championship we should applaud, and we should be happy to see, because this is a team that was built through the draft and made the right proper moves necessary to get them over the top. But this is not a star-studded team by any means. This is not a big three or some team that was put together in free agency. Jokic, second-round pick. Jamal Murray, lottery pick. Michael Porter Jr. was a lottery pick that kind of failed to them because he had questions about his back and different injuries in college at Mizzou. And everything else was kind of just proper acquisitions and good drafting. Christian Brown was a good draft pick. Even some of these other guys that we haven't seen much of, but we'll see when they continue their development, like Peyton Watson. I'm interested to see what this team will look like in the next years to come. Is this going to be the start of a new dynasty ushering themselves in? Because a lot of these guys, a part of this core, are locked in for the future. They're locked down. So it'll be interesting to see how the conversation and the narratives going into next season are around Jokic and what people are saying about him as an all-time center now that he has that ring to cement himself, as one of those guys in that conversation. And now you put that with the 2 MVPs and the fact that he has a lot of good basketball left in the tank. Never been a guy that missed a bunch of games due to injury or anything. So Jokic can now, start that conversation about being one of the all-time greats and where he's going to position himself when it's all said and done. I think the next conversation for Miami is just how do they get better. This is a good run, an impressive run. It was entertaining to say the least. But one thing that's evident is that this team needs to improve in a lot of different ways. They're a little bit older. They're inconsistent. And they got a lot of guys they have to make decisions for. Max Strus, Gabe Vincent specifically, Caleb Martin, Kyle Lowry. And you got to get back to the drawing board with Jimmy and Bam and figure out different ways that you can make this team better. I don't know if that's entertaining the idea of moving on from Tyler Hero, or at least making yourself willing to listen to what's out there and what you could do, because they have some glaring holes that I think got exposed in this series, was exposed in the regular season, and they're going to be hard to gauge. Do they ignore everything that this entire season told them because they had a magical run and they just try to duplicate it and face a harsh reality that I feel like they know deep inside is there? Or do they make major shakeups and try to get this thing right by maybe going out and trying to get a Damian Lillard? How does that happen? I don't know. But, guys like that who have been linked to them for the last few years, is it time to press that button and really shake things up majorly? Or do you just patch shit up here and there and say, hey, that run was no fluke, with a full season of health and chemistry, we can replicate it and have this type of success again? We'll see. all in all, I don't want to say incredible because this was a gentleman's sweep, but it was an entertaining series to me. And like I said, I enjoy anytime we get a new team, anytime we get a new star into the championship conversation or championship history books. I think it just makes the league that much more better when we now have to worry about LeBron, Steph, Katie, and those familiar names and faces, the Giannis's. But now also when you add another name to the list and another team to the conversation to compete, the league just continues to get open and open and open, and the parity has been exciting and entertaining to say the least. And with so many different young teams on the rise, so many names in free agency, so many different directions this offseason can go, I think we are setting ourselves up to have another incredible season next year. A little disappointing because it felt like it came and went. It was a nice, long, entertaining season. I feel like just yesterday, me and Through the Wire was going on a road trip to go see the ring ceremony in San Francisco, and I blink and the last game of the season just ended, and the Denver Nuggets are the champions. And next season we'll be starting off in Denver and taking in their ring ceremony, and that'll be a sight to see. But as always, I appreciate you guys. Get prepared for the offseason content, mock drafts, rumors to talk about, different trade scenarios. And then once free agency comes, we'll talk about the signings and different moves that teams are making to position themselves to have a chance to be in this conversation next season. As always, I appreciate you guys. I am Pee Wee the Plug. This is NBA Weekly. We had a wonderful season. I'm out. Peace.